In progress.
All right, good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. Can we please have a roll call?
Yes, Treasurer Giosa,
Here?
Dean Rondo.
Here.
Mark Carrillo.
Here.
Michael Cicerone,
Here.
Joseph Kojida,
Here.
Matthew Howard,
Here.
Yon Lee. Yes. William Murray,
Here.
Claire Newell.
Yeah.
Andrew Nada,
Here.
Alan Plaza,
Here.
Sandra Paquette.
Oh, we're here. I'm sorry.
And Dr. Laura Shahi did notify us that she would not be here today. And Michael Tui also notified us that he would not be here. Jonathan Wilmer,
Here.
Treasurer, we have quorum.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to the second item on the agenda, which is the approval of the draft meeting minutes of February 13th, 2025 of the retirement board meeting.
I'll move approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Second, any discussion, edits? Seeing none, if all in favor, vote aye. Nays? Nope. Let's move. We will then move on to Frank's report.
Okay, thank you, Treasurer. Couple change, you might notice the Deputy Director Heidi Halvers here. She's going to kind of keep running the meetings up until my departure. But I will certainly be here and answer questions when they are required of me. Second part is the Governance Committee will have an update today that as the board may consider going into exec session. That will be for my review. The Chair, Andy Nada, will take care of that. And just the last piece, the admin committee will be starting to put some things together. We have a lot of items to get in front of the committee. The cybersecurity insurance, I literally got on Friday, so I'm going to review that and get that back to the committee for their review and then to the full board for their thoughts. Our IT audit is just about done, so that will make its way into the food chain. We're going to be looking for an extension to put in for our communications vendor, but we use a company called E-Way. So that's going to go inside, as well as the computer system TELUS. There was that part of that contract, and this was brought with the admin committee, the extension contract. So we're going to bring that up again for the committee to go through. With that, I don't have any other questions unless there is something that I can answer.
Any questions for board, for Frank and the board? All right, thank you. I will now open up for board member discussion and consideration of a proposed resolution concerning governor's proposal to not transfer surplus funds for fiscal 2024 to the pension fund pursuant to H5076, Article 002, Section 3.
Thank you. I'm sure you recall, and just to review, at the last meeting, we had discussed the governor's proposal that for this year, the funds that are designated, the surplus, half of the surplus funds, which are designated to go right into our fund, would be redirected and they would be used at the for the general expenses, I suppose. And I think as we had discussed there, as members of the pension board, whose fiduciary responsibility it is to guard that fund, that I felt it would be appropriate for us to send in a resolution to the governor and hopefully to the Speaker of the House, to the President pro tempore of the Senate, to indicate that we are not in favor of this, that we oppose using money designated for our pension fund to be used for some other reason. I think one of the things that was also brought up was the fact that although this pertains to this year only, as far as the governor's proposal is concerned, it could set a precedent. We do not want that to happen. Our funds are needed. And so therefore, I did draw up a draft resolution, and maybe I could just as we did in school, take
It's a
one.
good-
It's actually inconvenient. There's a memorandum.
I'm having trouble loading it up. It's, I'm in the do loop on, bringing up the file.
Maybe it's you.
Maybe. Maybe.
Copy of.
I have it in front of me right now.
Okay, good, and we don't have to pass them. Okay, great. So as you can see, the resolution says, we, the undersigned, as members of the ERSRI pension board, whose primary fiduciary responsibility mandates the maintenance and security of funds within the trust, submit to you the following resolution. Pertaining to Article 2, Section 3 of your proposed 2026 budget, the board members strongly oppose any redirection of surplus revenues, approximately 21.2 million, I believe that figure is accurate, which are legally required to be deposited into the pension fund. We question the efficacy of denying the pension trust, which has been struggling to undo a level of unfunded liability for over 14 years, the assets to which it is legally entitled. I would stop it there. I had added another paragraph, but upon reflection, I felt that following paragraph is not necessary and was not in keeping with the rest of it. Now, I indicated at the top, we, the undersigned, because I felt that it was important that anyone who did not want to sign their name to this resolution certainly did not have any indication that you must sign. But I would like to feel.
Just so that you're. Should the board choose to do this, it speaks in one voice.
Yes, the board.
Yes.
So
Oh,
it's gonna either be a
okay.
yes or a no to say here to whomever
Yeah.
or no.
Okay,
So-
oh, great. I'm very happy to hear that. Okay,
It's
how
good that you
does
say that,
everyone-
seeing my review is coming later on.
Yeah.
Any,
Any discussion, do we feel that we as a board, must, and I say must, indicate to the governor that we are we are guarding our trust funds. We want the money, it's legally mandated to go into our fund, that we want it to go to them.
yeah,
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. Thank you so much for drafting the letter. I totally support it, but I have a question for you were talking about last paragraph. I had some questions there. So if we decide not to include it,
Right. No, as I
maybe we
said,
don't need to
upon
discuss because I feel
upon
last
reflection,
paragraph
and
is.
if my printer had been working correctly last night, I would have eliminated that. But it was not, so I figured I would mention that instead. No, I believe it would be paragraphs 1, 2, and 3. They are sufficient.
so, does everyone wanna go deep into the wording of this?
Just-
What's the general over?
Just 2 points. Sandra had indicated that it all besides, in addition to the governor, that it also go to the speaker and the Senate president. I would suggest that we include all members of the General Assembly, those two, and also CC all members, or if you say, action to them, that too. And the only question, and maybe Joe can confirm this, I thought it was 21.6 million.
Can confirm the exact number.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
We can, that,
So is the 21.6 or 21.2 million?
that's
Is
the
that the
50%.
full amount
That's
of the
the
surplus?
50%.
Or that's the 50%? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And you know me with the details.
I thought it was Sandra's resolution.
It's the board's resolution.
So, outside of the facts and the numbers, if the board is supportive, I'd love for our attorney to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to check on particularly some of the capitalized terms. I would note that it's the retirement board, not the pension board. So I check out some of those capitalized
Right.
terms to clean
Okay.
that up.
Sure.
I think I took that out in my version. Which one are you reading? Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I had extracted that,
Okay.
and put in the retirement
Retirement
report of the
system.
employees'
Okay.
retirement system.
Yeah, yeah.
I see that now, yeah.
But you can,
But yeah,
there are questions.
Yeah, we'll still have.
it won't change the import of it, it'll just clean up any, you know. Capitalized terms or whatnot.
Mark,
Is the governor's proposal just not to deposit the fund, or is it to change the statute so that he does not have to deposit?
It is a
Is it
change,
saying it's legally, it says legally required?
it is proposing a change to the statute, which would be a 1-year suspension of the transfer that would resume in following years.
So. I mean, just this is the. I think the fund should be deposited and I support the resolution. I just, as far as an attorney looking at it, to make it legally correct, because. They are, I think. It's not a redirection of surplus revenues. I think it's a request to suspend something technically. So I would like it to be technically correct from our perspective. You know, it's up to the board whether they support it or not, but if it's going to be supported, I would like it to be technically correct as to what is being contemplated. Not picking on the language here. I'm in support of the language and, well, support of the intent. I just want it to be, because this makes it sound like the governor is proposing to do something that's illegal. Just that's, you know, reading it on the face, and he's not, he's making a request to change something that currently exists. So I would just like to.
The word redirected in one of the articles I had read.
Yeah, that's,
So
and
it just, but.
I'm not
again,
nitpicking
no,
your words.
no,
I just.
I appreciate it, I do.
To point of order, this is the way the pension system first got into the difficulties. When the General Assembly was scooping funds.
I would like to be
This was
clear,
prevented.
excuse me, that we're not taking any balances out of the
Right.
pension
No,
fund.
I
This is
understand.
not a deferral of the required contribution. It is categorically different than things that have happened in the past.
Understand
Right.
totally.
It's in excess of the required arc, correct?
And at the
Correct.
13th, the February meeting, I took a note saying,
Let me show this out.
Okay.
Let.
let Joe come up with.
Yeah, let me have. Let's take a motion to have our legal. Let's clean up the language. Bring it back to the board at the next month meeting. We'll vote on. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. The governor is only doing it for this year. Is it certain that whatever the language is that a year from now, we're okay on it, or is there, you know what I'm saying?
Think you can project what the government.
Mhm.
I think that's part of the concern is that, you know, the ability to say, well, we've done it before.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to be clear on what's actually being said here.
Sure, just be clear though, it is, I mean, the law that's being proposed by the governor is for 1 year.
Right,
Right.
okay, thank you.
But only FY 26, not the ability in the
Yeah,
future
right.
Yeah.
to redirect for
Right.
another 1-year period, right?
Correct.
Just FY 26.
That would require another change to the law in a future year.
You'd have to, well, okay. Thank you.
If we do
Yeah.
next month for vote, would that be too late? Give the urgent of the matter, so would it be,
I don't think
legislator?
The budget's not gonna get voted till like end of May.
Oh, yeah, June,
Beginning of
no,
June.
June, end
Oh,
of June.
June,
like-
however, this would, if I may interject, this would set in motion via our members who may want to get involved. And by members, I mean the actives and the retirees. They have not only the heads up, they have something to point to members of the General Assembly. And I'm not in favor of kicking the can down the road. I'm not sure, as I said before, with regard to board meetings, there's only a 48-hour requirement for notification. If legal counsel could come up with something as soon as possible, maybe we could schedule a short notice meeting to get this out there if members are amenable. I know I am, but I think it's vitally important to get this out in front of the state and our members as soon as possible.
Could this be something, if we agree to the resolution and only to the fact that our attorney is going to put it more in legal terms? Could we do that by email?
No.
No,
No,
No, rolling quorum.
no, exactly. That's why you'd have to have.
we would have.
Uh,
to-
uh,
But I
another
think
meeting.
that we should.
The next
do it.
meeting is April, you have April, May, June.
And just point of order, I assume we'd need a vote to change the wording about like dropping the last paragraph and adding CC to all legislators, right? That, you tell me, but I assume that would need a vote to change the resolution.
I would say no, only because this is coming from a member, so I think you as the board have the opportunity
To
to
change it.
add, subtract, what have.
But we would need a
Oh,
vote but wouldn't we need a vote? Wouldn't the board have to decide to change it, and the only way to get the vote?
The final doc, so if the
Yeah.
board says we're gonna change A, B,
Yeah.
and C, then you would motion to.
Yeah, so there need to be a vote to
Yeah.
change it. Yeah, okay, I just
Okay,
wanna make sure I
But
understand.
please be clear, the resolution that I'm submitting does not include paragraph 4.
Okay, all right, I see,
As the
And-
person
but-
submitting the resolution,
Right.
you
even
know,
though it's in board docs with.
So the convene is the
Okay,
different.
Like, I copy and pasted that.
Yeah.
Into convene, I modified, as I mentioned earlier, where it says retirement board of the employees retirement system
Yeah.
versus pension, in the bottom, I signed. Respectfully submitted retirement board of, that's the
Yeah.
only piece that I changed, but the piece on top.
Yeah.
Is what Sandra sent to the treasurer and I,
okay,
the piece that's here is the same thing, other than that one change that I made.
You remove the first three words, correct? We the undersigned is not in the.
You change those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
okay.
all right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I vote yes.
Well,
I think
you-
you wait till
motion.
the-
I move
I
that
think we
we
should wait.
accept the resolution with, provided that it is, edited into a format that is more appropriate to send.
With the elimination of the last paragraph.
Yes.
Right,
And the inclusion of not only the speaker, the president, and the members of the general assembly.
We also need to make sure that the numbers are factual.
Yes.
It's 21.6 million.
21.6, that's what.
well, I mean, if we're gonna adopt this now, I guess I'll just sort of point out, it's obvious that I'm gonna vote no. Right, and you know.
You're one vote.
We need a second before we discuss.
Yeah, we need a second.
All right, vote.
We
We have a
verify
motion by
whether
Sandra
to-
Yeah.
to consider sending this resolution.
I second it.
So is it as is with the elimination of the last paragraph, the addition of the CCs and the correction of the value to
Yes.
21.6?
Right. And any
other
other-
stylistic edits to be
Okay.
proposed by legal counsel.
Yeah.
And on the agenda, it's listed as discussion, so that's why we're doing it. this
Unless
way.
you have a
No,
motion, a second.
It's
for
discussion and consideration.
Yeah.
Which means you can vote on.
Okay.
All right, Wilma.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's pretty obvious that I'm gonna vote no, which as Mr. Cadiga reminded us all last week, where the only reason there's excess funds is because an arbitrary change from the federal government changed the tax filing receipts. As you may have paid attention in the news, right? We've had some fiscal disruptions with this year's budget. We're likely to continue to have those disruptions with this federal administration that's in place. So, I mean, clearly, not having these funds for the General Assembly are gonna have probably a significant impact on some of the most vulnerable in this state. So I just like to remind the board of that.
I'd also like to point out that our fiduciary responsibility is to the pension system, actives and retirees, and those members are also some of the most vulnerable.
Right, and I wanted to say the same thing. What you are stating is the position of the governor. And again, you have every right to do that. However, sitting here as members of the retirement board, our only concern has to be our fund and our members.
That seems odd to me to be your only consideration.
Well, that's why we were
That's why we
elected.
had fiduciary responsibility training.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
I mean, I'd like to see the final product before,
I,
we
I
officially-
agree with that.
Are we voting to move this or are we voting
Yeah,
to
so we have
adopt
to
it?
make a motion.
Yeah,
The motion need to-
We have a motion on the table.
Yes.
So,
I mean, we're in the discussion phase, right?
yeah,
That's just part of the discussion.
So Matt, if we wanted to bring it back to the board for final approval, then we would have.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't wanna put my name on something that I don't see the final product of.
Okay, so repeat the motion.
the motion that I took down was that you would send it to the House and the Senate with the adjustments that were mentioned and review by council first. So, question is, do you want to bring it to the next meeting for?
So right now, the motion would not have it come back to the next meeting. Okay, that's the motion on the floor. If someone wants to move to amend that motion. Such that it would come back to the next meeting, you can make a motion to amend.
Mhm.
And get a second on that, and then you would vote on the motion to amend. Which would bring it back to the next meeting,
Mhm.
and then you'd vote on the original motion.
Well, I make a motion to amend the original motion to have the final product come back to us before.
I second it.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Well, any discussion, then we need a roll call
Okay, another
vote.
discussion.
Call for discussion, then I would like a roll call vote on that,
Okay.
please.
Discussion on the amendment.
So this is the
Discussion on the
amendment.
amendment.
Yeah, amendment.
Bring it
Can
back
I
to
ask
the-
a question?
Yes,
Can Matthew, change her motion? I thought it had to come from whoever made the motion.
So I think we're voting on amending the
Well,
motion.
amendment.
Amending the
Yeah.
motion, that's what I mean, but usually when you amend the motion, wasn't it from?
No, he can make a motion to amend.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
Okay, Treasurer Diaz.
oh, discussion on the amendment. Amending the amendment. No discussion?
The only thing I would say is that we trust our attorney to put the exact same thing into a more legal format. I personally don't see the need for the amendment because I feel it will be in good hands. And again, I am in favor of getting this over as soon as possible, but I understand.
I agree with you, but I'm also the guy who read his entire mortgage before he signed it.
Still hasn't signed
You know,
it.
and I found a mistake. So,
Okay,
no disrespect, I agree with what we're doing
yeah,
wholeheartedly. I'm the kind of person that I'd like to see the final product before my name goes on something and goes, especially if it's going out to the entire general assembly.
What are we looking at as a date in April for the meeting?
It'll be the next board.
But the date,
No, okay. Ninth,
Which gives us plenty of time.
April 9th.
3 weeks.
April 9th.
No, should be 11.
9th.
Oh, the 11th, the 11th?
yeah.
The 9th is a Wednesday.
Then it's the
Was it the
9th.
ninth?
The 9th,
Yeah,
okay.
I apologize.
All right, roll call vote.
All right, just so I can make sure. The motion here
None.
is to, number one, send to both House and Senate. Two, to go back to,
On the amendment.
I thought the amendment got added to the.
No, you have to approve the amendment first.
And
And then it becomes
you
part of the
approve it.
original motion, and then you vote on the original motion,
Right.
if the amendment passes.
Yeah.
So we need to vote on the amendment, which is to have me revise this and bring it back to the next board meeting for consideration.
All right, all in favor, vote aye.
Roll call.
Roll call, you want roll call, and then a yes?
Yes.
All right, okay,
Okay, Treasurer Diaz,
yes.
Jean Rondo,
Yes.
Mark Rulla.
Yes,
Michael Cicerone,
Aye.
Joseph Cadega,
Yes.
Matthew Howard,
Yes.
Yon Lee,
Yes.
William Murray,
Yes,
Clara Newell,
Yes.
Andrew Nada,
Yes.
Alan Plazo.
Yes.
Sandra Paquette,
Yes,
Jonathan Wilmer.
Yes,
So that is unanimous. Passage of that.
now we're back on the original motion as amended, which will call for me to revise this based upon the discussion. Add that we will send to the speaker and the Senate and CC all members of the House of Representatives and Senate. And bring it back for consideration at the April 9th board meeting.
So all we're really voting on is to bring it back, as corrected by you.
With the,
With the-
added
With the,
revisions.
right, okay.
Revisions.
Treasurer, just one thought.
Yeah.
So, I'm just not sure if the board is comfortable. It's a very simplistic resolution, right? So are we comfortable that there's no basis? We're not adding any context to why this board is taking this vote, other than the obvious, right? So I just say that as we direct legal counsel to add something to it, whether or not we should contemplate some meaning associated with it, or are we comfortable just leaving it in its simplistic form, that it's a no vote, which I think most of the people who are gonna receive this would expect most from this board. So I just put that out to the group to contemplate as we go forward.
I mean, does the first paragraph, I mean, I know it's not on the nose, but you know, as the members of the retirement for the employees retirement system in the state of Rhode Island, whose fiduciary responsibility mandates the maintenance and security of funds within that trust, we submit to you the following resolution. I think that kind of.
I'm asking if we're comfortable with that
Yeah.
alone,
Yeah.
that's all.
I believe that using very basic terms, we are not initiating a legal document here. We are sending a resolution indicating our feelings and why. Again, I personally believe that because we are members of the pension board, the retirement board, that speaks for itself.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I'm listening to
I
Mr.
understand.
Kadega, Mr. Walmer and others. It's not as simple as we're making it
Yeah.
seem now. It's more complicated than that. And it will have rippling effects in a lot of different areas. So that's why I ask. I'm comfortable with whatever decision the board makes going forward. And if that first paragraph is satisfactory, then we should go forward. But I just, there's more to it than just, it's not this simple.
Currently, along with the direction that you've given me, I could, add something to it, such as citing, the general laws where your fiduciary responsibilities are found. Which might give us some more of that meat that you're looking for.
The status of the fund today, the fact that we just expanded benefits, which carry an additional cost. There were other things, simple things that may point some facts to why this board would take on that fiduciary objection to an action.
If you read the actual language that the governor put in his law, it is basic, it is simple. He does not go into any of the things that you're saying regarding, I really think that's going to complicate the situation. I appreciate and I understand what you are saying, but I think we're going to get a little off path by turning it into more of almost like a counter legislation, and that's not what we want to do. We just want to indicate we are mandatorily the ones who maintain our pension fund, so we object to any changes.
Mark,
I was just gonna ask Andrew if it would behoove us to go back and look at the legislation that was enacted, basically requiring the dedication of that funding. And there might be something in the preamble of that legislation that says, this is why we're saying to put this surplus into the fund. It could be as simple as one of the whereases out of that prior legislation, whereas the General Assembly would like to blah, 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 and we thereby contribute this. Just a paragraph out of that reiterating, and then, not to tell you strategically what to do, but if you give the General Assembly back their language in your resolution saying, by the way, GA, here's why you did this in your own words. Now you're gonna reverse it. There may be some weight to that. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just.
I believe though that when you look into the law, and I wish I had it in front of me, it does not indicate any reason for that article.
Not the governor's law, the original General Assembly law.
Oh, I thought you were.
No.
The governor, as I said very briefly.
So the General Assembly normally would do a resolution like this prior to their enactment, and it would provide for you some rationale as to why they're saying we should be dedicating surplus to the retirement system.
But, okay.
So I'm just saying, if there's such
Right.
language
No,
in their preamble that,
But we are objecting, we are,
no, I'm just saying, you'd be reinforcing the General Assembly's prior
The
action in their
original.
own language to say, why would you reverse that when this is what your finding was previously? And with all respect, I understand that the state is in a difficult situation with budgeting. I appreciate that, as are a lot of the communities in the state, and
So I don't wanna make it too
You know, so,
simple.
yeah.
Kind of simple in the sense that I think
But-
the general message around the resolution, which I'm confident we can go back and clean it up, is that the board does not feel is opposed to moving the funds, right? Or
Yeah.
not
Right.
allocating the funds of this year. I think that's generally the message. I think Pat can go back and clean up, and then at the next board meeting, we can take a vote on the final product.
And for informational purposes, that law we're discussing where 50% goes in, that was changed once. It was 100%.
Mhm.
And because of difficulties, they went in and said, oh, we'll only do 50% into the pension fund. So maybe that would provide some background for the current members of the General Assembly, because I know many of them have no idea what happened with ERSRI 2011.
Just for reference, this has only happened 3 times in the last 30 years.
And Frank,
Counting this.
No, it's based on. I don't think arithmetic is the right word, but it's based on what the budget is versus, so it's not something this board controls.
We're simply making a statement.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a clear statement. We have no control. They're gonna boil down in June on a budget. This could be a mess.
We're basically just making a stand.
And exactly, because I don't care what you write. They're gonna come down to the end and say, this is all we can do. So it's really just a statement that we're making as a board.
Right.
But it's necessary statement as a board.
I don't disagree, but I say it is a statement, let's be honest about it.
All right, so
We're
now
not gonna
that,
change anything.
now that we have the new motion, we can now go into a roll call vote.
Okay, and who was the second on that question?
I was,
Yeah.
Okay. Treasurer Diaz.
Yes.
Jean Rondo,
Yes.
Mark Carrillo.
yes.
Michael Cicerone.
Yes.
Jessica Dega.
No.
Matthew Howard,
Yes.
John Lee,
Yes.
William Murray,
no,
Claire Newell.
Yes.
Andrew Nada,
Yes.
Alan Palazzo,
Yes.
Sandra Paquette,
yes.
Jonathan Wilmer.
No.
Anyone else? That's it.
That's all.
Okay. So that motion, that resolution will go back to you, come back to the next April 9th. We can then vote whether to send it or not as official communication. All right, now moving on to the approval of the February 2025 pensions as presented by ERSRI. So move, second,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No nays. Sorry, any legal counsel report?
So the reports have been included with your packet. I'll just note, on the Fontaine matter. Been working with Mr. Fontaine, this will be the next update as well, but a assented to motion for consent judgment has been filed. That's scheduled to be heard in May, early May. Mr. Fontaine has been cooperative and has agreed, to file the consent to motion, which would thereby revoke his time. Only pertinent to his board of elections time, which is when the criminal behavior occurred. And I know that was previously discussed with the board when I brought that kind of before you in an executive session. Regarding Mr. Fontaine's recommendation. But other than that, if there are any questions on any of the other matters listed with updates or any matters in general, I'm happy to answer.
Questions? Legal counsel? None, thank you. We will now move on to committee reports. I will call on Claire Newell for the report as Dr. Sawhughes is absent.
All right, I recommend approval, passage of, the disability committee recommendations of March 7th. Items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
You have a motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any nays? So moved. Thank you. Right, we're moving on to the governance committee.
Okay, great.
Update on the search
Thank-
process.
Thank you, Treasurer. As the board is aware, the governance committee has been meeting with a series of meetings that started in late January. We've had several in February and now find ourselves in March. Two of the main items that we have been tackling are the performance review, required performance annual review of our executive director. And the second item is the organization of a search process to find his replacement. I'm going to start with an update on the search process. These meetings started in February per the charter associated with the review that's noted and convened. Initial action of the governance committee has to begin in January. So in February, we met as a committee multiple times and began on a fairly detailed discussion regarding what that process should look like. What emanated from those meetings, and which was reported out at our last full board meeting, was the fact that we tasked the director with reviewing recruitment firms that are on the state's MPA. We chose that initially as a path of least resistance to evaluate the quality and scope of recruitment firms that exist on the MPA and whether or not that would be satisfactory. We went through that process as a committee. What was decided at a meeting in February was that we would develop a subcommittee of the governance committee to be able to conduct some preliminary interviews of multiple firms that were on that list. The director assisted us in culling the probably more than 10 firms that are presently existing on the state MPA down to a few that we felt had sufficient public exposure for recruitment of various positions, and also some dealing with a finance background. So on that subcommittee was Attorney O'Gara, Jean Rondeau, the director, and myself as a subgroup of the main committee. Later in February, we hosted a meeting in which we actually interviewed two firms. One was a firm named Ford Webb, and the second was Wilmot. So we went through that process as a subcommittee. As we came out of that subcommittee, we formed, of course, many opinions and perspectives on the validity and the ability of those two firms. I think in summary, those two firms were at opposite ends of the spectrum. The other reason why we conducted the interviews and asked the director to look into this, both on the MPA and off the MPA, was to get some type of idea as to what the cost would be associated with the recruitment plan. So those costs generally fluctuated anywhere from in the $20,000 range to over $50,000. And that was generally applicable to, I think, the vast majority of firms that we were looking at. We conducted the interviews. I think we felt that Ford Webb was that traditional, absolutely comprehensive national recruitment firm that would be holding our hand and would look throughout the entire process, wants to learn about our organization and really vet all the aspects about kind of where the organization was, where we are today, and what we need going forward. In another perspective, I would say Wilmot, which is based here in New England, was a more mechanical group. So I think the Ford Webb was 50,000 plus. I think Wilmot was 20,000 plus. But really what they would do was mechanically manage the process for us. So we committee members deliberated on that for a while as to whether or not we were comfortable getting our hands a little bit dirty, actually working on the process, actually helping significantly to cull the number of applications, add all the other uniqueness to the state of Rhode Island and the Rhode Island perspectives that have to be offered in such a search. We deliberated that at length as well. So we concluded as a subcommittee, we brought that back to the full governance committee and really repeated that same conversation with everybody. And I think we were waffling between feeling comfortable enough just with two firms with that level of disparity in the scope that they would provide. And at the conclusion of that meeting, the committee decided that it was preferable to move forward with a full RFP. Fortunately, the director, under the direction of the governance committee, had already formulated a draft RFP. It's about 20+ pages long. It includes all of the state boilerplate associated with recruitment, the award of the issuance of RFPs under the state guidelines and the award process that goes into it. We felt comfortable with the scope as articulated by the director. So at that meeting, we directed the executive director to release that. That has since been released. As of today, it has already been posted in Pension and Investments, the Providence Journal, and the state's procurement website. And the due date for those proposals is March 28th. So I think we felt comfortable as a committee that that was necessary just to make sure we continue on an accelerated format, because we understand there is timing issues associated with the director's retirement later in June. The interim role that will be played by those professional staff that are here, as well as kind of minimizing any gap in time that we don't have a solid director in that position. So we felt comfortable in getting to that particular recommendation. So that, without going into more detail, I think, and I'll open it up to other committee members as well. I think we felt comfortable in that process, but we're happy to answer any questions. That process has begun. It is advertised. Our foot is on the pedal. We're moving it forward. And I think if we have results in the next week or two, our hope is to be able to bring it back to the committee with a strong recommendation in April. Should May be too late, we too might request a special meeting only if the board felt it was necessary to save a few weeks. It may not be. But if we're not prepared in April for a recommendation to the board to award that contract, we'll come back to you in May with that recommendation. So happy to answer any questions, or the board members are here as well to follow up.
Any questions for Andy? No, just want to say thank you. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, we'll continue to provide updates at every meeting, just so that, and of course, we're accessible to all board members as well, should you have any questions. So that's our update on the search process for the executive director position. Second item that we hope to bring to a conclusion today is the performance review of the executive director. Let me get myself organized.
Long and the short of it is we're gonna be asking him to leave at the end of June.
Yeah. We have been building up a tolerance for that sarcasm. Into the governance meetings by multiple members, I will say, including myself, but yeah, exactly. So, in following the charter requirements under the executive director, as the board knows, the governance committee is responsible for managing the performance review process. We initiated that process in late January. We utilized with the support of the executive director, and as noted in the review, the final review, as noted in convene in the packet today, we just gave a little background on the process. We've used the historic process that's been exercised in such reviews. There's a quantifiable aspect to it, plus a narrative aspect with comments. We were I was tasked by the committee after receiving the summary results by legal counsel, who all the reviews conducted by 11 out of the 14 members of the board were facilitated to legal counsel. Patrick put together all of those, provided them to the committee. We reviewed those results. We reviewed the results of the comments that were made, and the comments varied. They're out of 11 submittals. We may have had as little as 3 comments on one question, and as many as a half a dozen or more on others. So it was important to summarize and not let individual comments drive the director's review. Just as a quick summary.
Andy, we need to get into the exec session if you want.
Yeah, do you want to get to the exec session?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was wondering if you were going towards that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pause there. Thank you, Executive Director. So we're at a point in this discussion where, as the director noted, that the executive board will consider going into executive session. Prior to today's meeting, we did provide a letter to the director, notifying him that he had the right to require the discussion and performance evaluation to be conducted in public. Frankly, you're,
I have the letter here and it's mine in executive session.
okay. So, with that support, before we get into any discussion on the actual review itself, I'd entertain a motion per pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A1 to discuss the governance committee's recommendations in connection with the performance evaluation of the executive director. Do we have such a
I will
motion?
so move that motion.
Second. Roll call vote,
Okay, Treasurer Diaz,
yes?
Steve Morado,
Yes.
Mark Rulo.
Yes.
Michael Cicero,
Yes.
Joseph Bodega,
Yes.
Matthew Howard,
Yes.
John Lee,
Yes.
William Murray,
Yes.
Claire Newell,
Yes.
Andrew Nada,
Yes.
Alan Carter,
Yes.
Sandra Beckett,
Yes.
Jonathan Homer.
Yes.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
He's got the script.
Exactly.
Okay, all set.
All right, we're back from executive session.
Right, so discussion and action in executive session included that there were 3 unanimous votes in executive session on a motion made by Mark Carullo and seconded by Claire Newell. It was unanimously supported, Patrick, to go into executive,
You don't
or
have to
just
vote
the
on-
recommendation
You only have to vote on the votes taken in, so it was,
and to seal the minutes.
yes.
Yeah, okay. So on a recommendation of the governance committee to accept the executive summary of the performance evaluation of Executive Director Frank Kapinski and to place said copy in above same in his personnel file. On a motion made by Mr. Carullo and seconded by Alan, there was a motion made to seal the minutes of executive session.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right. Now that we're back, we will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Wow, that was quick. Motion by Al, second by Claire, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting has adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You.